they had some group text message thread between all of them, and somebody was pretty hammered or something, and they just made a song out of it. They just took this wacky drunken text message and they made a song out of it. Or somebody said something super weird to them right after they were done, and they made a song about that too. And they just wouldn't stop making music. One of my favorite bands on the road these days is the California Honeydrops, and they're from Oakland, California. Great. I just have to say, I'm just so enamored with their own sound, but each individual member's musicianship, and not just what the music that they create, but it's the way that they've studied all of the music that goes into their music, and you can hear it not just in their covers. And I'm always surprised. I think they wrote something new, and then I just put on an old Aretha Franklin album, and I was like, oh, that's where they got that song from. Or Lesh loves Ray Charles, Otis Clay, Curtis Mayfield, Wilson Pickett, just the Rebirth Brass Band, you name it. Like they've listened to it all, and I just really appreciate how they've studied it and carried on. I went to see him for the first time down in New York, and I kind of got to meet him, shake hands, and just say hi. And then back in the fall here, they came through Syracuse. They came to the Westcott, and really excited because the first time they ever came to Syracuse. Certainly got tickets immediately, and I thought, hey, I'll say hi if I get a chance, but I don't want to like fanboy over them. But I really do. They've influenced me quite a bit. I had, through a very circuitous route, I had gotten the drummer's number, Ben. The band had put up some Facebook post, I think during COVID or around that time, something in response to some kind of, I want to say, don't quote me on this, but some kind of Black Lives Matter, taking a pretty easy but still pointed stance on the issue, and they got a lot of flack for it for some reason. I didn't really understand why. I didn't really think it was warranted. In response to that, Ben, who's a real even-keeled guy, he said, hey guys, rather than let's just have a bunch of nasty comments, if anybody wants to talk things out, like let's just hop on Zoom together. And I'd love to hear other points of view. Like, I don't know everything. I would love to know other points of view, and we can like all leave more informed. And I thought that was like really mature in this age of silliness. And so I certainly hopped on the Zoom, signed up for it, and it turned out not a lot of people showed up, and also not a lot of dissenting opinions either. It was just everyone kind of on the same side. I don't know what that says about social media, who says bad things, what they show up for. But anyway, it was a great conversation about everything that was going on at that time, political activism. But through that, I had gotten Ben's number and stayed in touch with him because of it. And so when he came to town, I shot him a message, and I was like, hey man, I'd love to like grab coffee with you if you got some time before the show or after or whatever. And he was like, yeah, love to. We went down to the Sound Garden and just flipped through LPs and bought a few used vinyls for ourselves. And I certainly wanted to make it known to him that what he and the band, what they do has really meant a lot to me and really influenced me. And it's not that he didn't take the compliment, but he was really, in a good way, he was really pretty disinterested in it. He was like, yeah, cool, man. Like, where's the record shop again? Like, it just got the sense he's like, I'm not doing it for the fame. I'm doing it because, specifically, he's not hanging out with me because he wants to like get something from me or get praise from me. Just wanted to hang out with another musician while he had a few hours to kill. That was it. And that mentality really stuck out to me. He, in his backpack, we were getting coffee. He's like, yeah, I gotta. He pulls out this like rack wheel from one of their road cases. He's like, yeah, man, I gotta get like a new axle for this. It's broke. Do you know any hardware stores? And we're like downtown Syracuse. I'm like, dude, I do not know where to send you. Namely because I don't live downtown, but there's not that many options. But I was like, yeah, man, I'm happy to pick something up for you. First, he's like, no, I'll figure it out. But as he realized, like, crap, we got a sound check. I don't have a car. He's like, you know what? If you don't mind, I need a 6-inch long threaded hex bolt with a locking washer. I was like, I got you, homie. So I show up to the Westcott with a 6-inch long hex bolt locking washer. It's not my ticket in, but the show was great. And then afterwards, I saw the rest of the band, some of whom I'd met before. And it was actually the sound guy, Covey, who, as I was getting ready to leave, really, he's like, "Hey, man, you hanging? You hanging with us?" And I was like, no, absolutely not. I was like, "Of course." And so we all went out. They were waiting for their driver to get from the hotel. It was an overnight drive, so he was sleeping through the show. And while they were waiting for him to come, we all just kind of hung out on the tour bus, which I was ecstatic over at first, but after a while, that kind of dissipated, and instead I left really impressed by everyone in the band and the crew. Everybody just wanted to make music all of the time. They had some group text message thread between all of them, and somebody was pretty hammered or something, and they just made a song out of it. They just took this wacky drunken text message and they made a song out of it. Or somebody said something super weird to them right after they were done, and they made a song about that too. And they just wouldn't stop making music. And that, I get wrapped up myself in a lot of the external things that we have to do as artists to do this for work, whether it's marketing or booking or repairing our instruments or all of those things that I have trouble with those kind of becoming my primary focus rather than my secondary focus. It was a really poignant reminder to me that, like, this is why these guys are where they're at and why they're on tour and why they're so good. It's because they just make music all the time, and they're really good at it. And they're really good at it because they make it all the time. And it was kind of like almost a slap in the face where I was like, hey, your branding really doesn't matter that much, but you better be able to make music all the time like this. And so it was meaningful that they not only asked me to hang out with them and let me come in, but also meaningful that I kind of left with that. And I also just shout out to Ben again. Maybe he didn't even think this much of it, but as I was getting ready to get out of the bus and they were getting ready to head off, they had mentioned that they might, in future tours, they might need a backline tech. And that's work that I do. And just to have the opportunity to work with them, I was like, yeah, man, I'd love to. Keep me in mind if you ever add another position to your tour. And I mentioned it to Garen, he's the tour manager. And I mentioned it to Ben as I was leaving. Hey, thanks, man. It's been so great. Hope to see you again. And let me know if you ever need a backline tech for your tour. And Ben said something super offhand, just very casually. But it meant a lot, and I thought it really said a lot about his character. The whole conversation earlier that day had been about my music, and I had some questions about, like, how do you scale up? How do you get people invested in a band? And so we talked about music the whole time. And here I am telling him, oh, let me be your backline tech. He said something, I think something like, very casually, yeah, I don't know what that'd do for your music career, but sure, I guess. And I walked away thinking, like, wow, rather than this guy being like, here's this kid, obviously very bought into what we do that we probably could get for cheap. And, we could bring him on tour. Instead, he's like, dude, is this in line with any of your goals? Is this like, sure, yeah, plug in cables, whatever. But, like, is this going to work for you? And I just thought that was really telling about his character and just who he is. That was one of the more meaningful, times I've gotten to interact with musicians that I really look up to. So many times you don't get to catch them. You get to, like, wave to them behind the bike rack fences, or they're so sick of people telling them you did a great job or whatever. They're like, yeah, whatever, where's the hotel? And I just thought this was such a great example of, like, people that I look up to really taking the time for someone to give them the time of day.